It's the sauce, Alexander.
This is Watts.
Make sure you like, subscribe, Ring General Podcast.
And don't forget to subscribe to the Ring Generals, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter.
Absolutely.
Do it, or I will get you.
And you're watching the Ring General Podcast. Turn this man around. Turn this man around. Subscribe, like, and comment.
Well, raise a glass in the sky and salute the Ring Generals.
That's right. That's
Welcome, everybody, to the Ring Generals Podcast. My name is Nick Nenad, and alongside me today is the RKJ Man.
Let's talk that talk, y'all. Hypocritical Nick on the road to WrestleMania, baby. Let's go. First time I'm excited for a WrestleMania in years.
Yeah, no, I mean, we haven't really been excited about WWE all year, which is great. Well, when I say all year, I mean all wrestling year, all WWE year, right? But yeah, no, I'm on the same path. We got through the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble was a great pay-per-view. And we're on the road to WrestleMania. Good stuff happening with AEW and New Japan. We will get to that later as well. New Japan is going to be showing in the United States. We got more wrestling to watch, RKJ. It's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan in the pandemic, which is crazy. But RKJ, I got to start with this. We got Super Bowl 55 this weekend. I'm going to surprise you. You didn't know I was going to ask you this before we got on. What's your pick? Who's your pick to win? Tell me if you think it's going to be Chiefs or Buccaneers.
Well, actually, I knew you were going to ask me this. I had a feeling you were going to ask me this. So I came kind of prepared.
Okay, good.
You were being kind of prepared. I'm not going to make any blasphemous takes today. You know how I feel about Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. I've wanted Patrick Mahomes on my Carolina Panthers for years. I want a quarterback just like Patrick Mahomes, and I think he is the new NFL, and I think the Buccaneers are going to get beat in this game by the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Give me 38-35 Kansas City. I think Frisco is going to win it with Butker, who actually was a kicker for the Carolina Panthers, but thank you, Marty Herney. You actually let him go. All right, so now we have some other guy who I have no clue who he is, but, you know, Butker could have been with the Carolina Panthers, but that's neither here or there. I think Butker's going to win it for the Kansas City Chiefs, 38-35, and Patrick Mahomes is going to win his second Super Bowl. I just think those weapons that Kansas City has is too much. I mean, the Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Oof. I mean, Hartman's probably going to get cleared to play from this this COVID issue that they had recently, and Patrick Mahomes is a beast. And you got Le'Veon Bell and Edwards-Helaire over there. I just think it's just too many weapons. And a lot of people are giving the Buccaneers defense credit, but I mean, I've seen the Buccaneers against the Saints earlier this year. I've seen some other games. That defense can totally be had, in the words of Shannon Sharp. I saw it earlier this year against the Kansas City Chiefs in Tampa Bay. So I think Kansas City is going to roll. I think it's going to be a fun, competitive game, and expect the elements possibly to play a part in tomorrow's game, too. It's supposed to rain tomorrow.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. Yeah, if you guys watched the Cover 2 podcast, you know we went over. We had a whole half of our show talking about the specific game. But I had Chiefs 38-32. I went with a little weird score just to see if I could get it right. But yeah, I got Chiefs. I think the Chiefs win. They're too overpowering. And like you mentioned, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce seem to get like 100 yards every single game. And Mahomes, right? I saw some bet. Like I would love to see what the prop bets are this year on how many touchdowns Mahomes going to throw, because I think you could hit the over on him, no matter what it is.
Didn't you say at one point Patrick Mahomes was struggling here? He was getting too cocky earlier this year.
And then guess what? Then they just showed me who they are.
And then blasphemous Nick right there. Hey,
RKJ, I also said that there was a debate between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady last week, and then Aaron Rodgers didn't even throw for it on fourth down. So, and they just kicked
run for it on third down or fourth.
It's true, yeah. So, I'm wrong. In sports business, I'm wrong. Just like in the wrestling business and the MMA business, I can be wrong, right? But I feel like I'm right more than I'm wrong. So
I was right with the Royal Rumble. I think Black Stradamus returned again for the Royal Rumble, man. I'm on fire with these women's Royal Rumbles, man.
Okay, let's get to it. So we'll talk about Royal Rumble a little bit. So RKJ Man, just your thoughts on the winners, real quick before we kind of dive into what's happened since on Raw and SmackDown. We're not going to go over the whole pay-per-view, but just your thoughts on the winners, Bianca Belair and Edge.
Obviously, I think Bianca Belair is the right choice right now.
Yeah.
And it's a really good point. And I've seen this floating around. We don't know where the future is for some of the major women in the WWE. Charlotte Flair, how long does she have left? Bayley, how long does she have left? Sasha Banks, really good on The Mandalorian. Who knows what the future holds for her in Hollywood? Alexa Bliss has said in a few years she might want to start a family with her fiance. So we don't know what the future is. So pushing some of these women right now, a Rhea Ripley, a Bianca Belair, a Toni Storm in the next few years. Like, I have the entire Women's Royal Rumble just mapped out for the next 3 years. Bianca Belair wins it this year. Rhea Ripley next year. Year after that, Toni Storm. That's my 3 Royal Rumble winners right there. That's like the 3 Royal Rumbles.
I'll replay this in 3 years if you're right.
It just makes sense to have these 3 women win it. And it seems like the WWE's whole formula in the Women's Royal Rumble, at least, is have a good showing in the Royal Rumble, do good in the booking year of wrestling. We know it goes from like Royal Rumble to Royal Rumble, WrestleMania to WrestleMania. And then guess what? When you get to the next year's Royal Rumble, then you'll win it. We saw it with Becky Lynch a few years ago, and I think the first Women's Royal Rumble did a fantastic job. She had a very strong booking year. She became the man, and then she ended up winning the Royal Rumble. We saw it last year with Bianca Belair. She had a very strong showing in the Royal Rumble, did very, very well, had a very strong booking year. She got off to a little slow start, obviously, because of the pandemic and what was going on with Raw. They moved her over to SmackDown, and everything started making sense and connecting. I was like, it just makes sense that they want to push her. And then I saw her paired up with Sasha Banks at Triple to the Truth, and I was like, that's the match they're going for. Okay, and then she wins it. And then this year, Rhea Ripley comes in, very impressive. I'm assuming she's going to be booked in a major match at WrestleMania. She's going to have a major build, and I'm assuming she's going to win the Royal Rumble next year. So that's what they're going for, and I'm totally okay with it as long as they do Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. I don't know why there's this fear that we might switch Bianca Belair to Asuka. That Raw Women's Championship is cursed in my opinion. Like, there's something wrong with that Raw's women's division. It's terrible. As for the men's division, Edge winning. At first, I have to be honest, I wasn't necessarily too happy. I wanted Daniel Bryan to win, and he was my pick. But now seeing Edge being on all 3 brands this week of WWE and seeing how he's trying to push the talent, I can see it making sense. However, I just don't want him to be facing Roman Reigns. Like, if that's what we're getting at WrestleMania, I just don't think that's going to work. I think Edge is better fit for Drew McIntyre. And I think Drew McIntyre needs to get his balls back after that terrible promo against Edge on Monday night. I don't know what they were doing, but they made Drew McIntyre look like a bitch on Monday Night Raw. From him trying to suck up to Edge for whatever weird reason, to him getting bro kick out of nowhere and crying about it, to Caleb Blackston, it just doesn't make any sense.
Wait a minute. Did you just say Caleb Blackston?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Caleb Braxton. My bad. Sorry.
That was a joke. That we had. That's hilarious. That
happened a long time ago, man. But hey, to be fair, she is black. She's half black. So shout out to Caleb Blackston. All right.
I can confirm it with my sources. Caleb Braxton is black. You are correct.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm black, but she is.
Okay.
But anyway, we had a situation where, like, I just don't think it makes any sense to do Roman Reigns versus Edge when you have a storyline already kind of there with Daniel Bryan and his history with Jey Uso, and I can just correlate to Roman Reigns. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think Edge versus Drew McIntyre makes perfect sense to me. But I'm okay with the 2 winners as long as they make the right decision going into WrestleMania.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Royal Rumble when I was watching it. It was both Rumbles were good in themselves as well before you had the winners. I think it's a little interesting that they had Edge go through 60 minutes or whatever he went through to win it. Like, I thought maybe just, put him in at like number 28, make it easy for him. But, they really want to build him up. I get it. Edge is Edge, right? Edge was one of my top 3 favorite superstars back in the day before he had to retire. So I'm not mad that he won. I would have rather seen maybe a Daniel Bryan, like you said, maybe a Cesaro, maybe the Fiend, someone like that, win it. That's a little, not 50 years old, right? But there's potentially, right? You have a story. It's not like this is out of nowhere. It's not like they had Goldberg win it, where there's no story to it. It's not like they had Cena win it, where you do have a story with Cena, but he hasn't been around for a while. The story with Edge is, on the date, I believe, of the first night of WrestleMania on April 10th was the date that he had to relinquish his title and retire. And so there's obviously that interesting, formula going into WrestleMania that Edge never lost his championship, right? He never lost his championship. So realistically, rematch clause, right? Not even a rematch clause. He never lost it. So I get it. And I'm fine with it like you are. Going to Bianca Belair, I said there was 3 women that needed to win this Royal Rumble. There was Bayley, there was Alexa Bliss, and there was Bianca Belair. And Bianca Belair won. She dominated. She kicked ass in this match, and she deserves it. And yeah, I do agree with you. I think it needs to be Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. The one thing about Asuka that people are saying is that, Sasha Banks can kind of handle her business in the ring against anybody. And if they just build somebody up, you could have a good match with Sasha. Same with Bianca Belair. And I think, obviously, Asuka can do her work, too. And it would make WrestleMania technically better with these guys, with having 2 different title matches. But you know what I'm for, RKJ? I'm for the best matches we possibly can get. I don't care if there's, the Raw Women's Championship match defended. To be honest, RKJ, right now, unless it's Alexa Bliss, I don't even care about the Raw Women's Championship being defended at WrestleMania. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Hold on, what about Rhea Ripley?
Well, it's Rhea Ripley on WWE TV. We saw Damian Priest. We saw Damian Priest on Raw after he showed up in the Royal Rumble, but I did not. As far as I know, Rhea Ripley wasn't on Monday Night Raw last Monday. So until she shows up, I can't say her. If Rhea Ripley shows up, absolutely, and I think she needs to win it because I think Rhea Ripley is the future, top 5 future in this business as far as women's wrestlers. So, as of right now, I don't think Bianca should be going after NXT. Obviously, I don't think she should be going after Raw. I think she should be going after SmackDown. So what's happened since the Royal Rumble, to update you guys, Edge went on every single brand. Monday Night Raw, like RKJ mentioned, he talked to Drew McIntyre. Sheamus interrupted. That's setting up a feud for Sheamus and McIntyre, at least at the Elimination Chamber. More than likely rules out Raw or the WWE Championship being defended inside the Elimination Chamber. We'll see what happens with that. And then he shows up to NXT, interrupts Finn Balor and Pete Dunne, says that he's going to be watching their match on Valentine's Day at NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day. So possibly he'll go over the NXT Championship. And then he comes to SmackDown. Roman Reigns is super pissed. Some good stuff going on there. And then Edge gets, shows up at the end of the show, disrespects Roman. Right when we're about to get an answer, Kevin Owens stuns Roman Reigns. So, it's left up in the air. Typical WWE style. We're not sure. RKJ, I think, and then Bianca Belair only showed up on SmackDown, her own brand. So we assume she's going to go after Sasha. We'll see. But so, RKJ, what are your prospects? So you think it's going to be, you think the Elimination Chamber is going to be SmackDown? Because I sure think it should be SmackDown. You got Daniel Bryan, you got Shinsuke Nakamura, you got Cesaro, you got The Fiend, you got Big E, you got Sami Zayn. Like, you have plenty of guys that could be in this match. Hell, even put Roman Reigns in the match and have him defend the title, right, too. So you have 6 solid-ass motherfuckers in that match that have all been built nicely coming into this. I don't blame SmackDown for building their men's division, to be honest. SmackDown's been doing a great job. Like I said, you look at Shinsuke, he's been getting wins. You look at Cesaro, he pinned Daniel Bryan clean, right? Roman is the best booked champion in the company. Big E, great booked Intercontinental champion. The Fiend is the Fiend, and then you can put Daniel Bryan in the match. You have 6 men. Where do you see with the women as far as an Elimination Chamber going? Like, what? Because there probably has to be a women's one, right? Where do you see which brand gets that? Because do you think Bianca Belair is just going to come back next week and decide that she's going for Sasha Banks' title?
Well, first of all, the Fiend's on Raw, right?
You're right. You are correct. You're correct. I don't see. Here's the thing. is the Fiend really on Raw, or is he on like both brands? Right.
He could be on both brands. I would recommend that the Fiend be on both brands just to match up. But as far as the women's situation goes, I think that needs to go to Raw, because I think the SmackDown one is just hiding in plain sight. It should be next week, Bianca Belair showing up to challenge Sasha Banks. Now, we could talk about how we want that storyline to go. I'm a little concerned about how that storyline's going, seeing that interaction last night. It seemed kind of corny and lame. That segment seemed lame, to be honest with you. And I'm disappointed because Bianca Belair was killing it last year in NXT when she had Charlotte Flair down there. So I don't know why she can't show that same type of charisma on SmackDown. I don't know what's going on.
Bruce is writing. That's why.
No, it's Vince writing that. That is absolutely Vince. Okay. This is the same guy who made Roman Reigns say what? Shaka Shaka do or something, or suffering such attacks. He said something stupid. So that is definitely Vince. And Vince has got to stop with that corny stuff. All right, now let's move on to the women's thing. So on Raw, the women's division or the women's championship should be defended in Elimination Chamber. It is the weaker one of the two. The problem is you're going to probably have your WrestleMania match within that Elimination Chamber anyway. You got to have Charlotte Flair in there for some star power. You're probably going to have upcoming Rhea Ripley, because I'm just assuming Rhea Ripley is going to be on Raw. I'm hoping she's going to show up on Raw. Okay, and then who else do you have on Raw?
Well, okay, so if you look at, I mean, there's the potential of Becky Lynch, obviously. Like, there's the later on, right? Like, there's the potential of Becky Lynch possibly being at WrestleMania. It's April, right? When did she have her child?
Late November, early December, I would think.
I'm throwing it out there. Positive. I'm not saying Becky Lynch should fight. Take another year off if you want to, right? You know, it's your child. Pregnancies can go wrong sometimes. Your body doesn't recover right. So you know, I'm not gonna force her, obviously. If I don't see Becky Lynch, it's fine. All I'm saying is there is the potential of a star in Becky Lynch coming back for WrestleMania. But as far as Raw goes, you know, last year we saw Shayna Baszler dominate this thing, right? She dominated, and then she went in and lost to Becky Lynch clean, right? So you have Shayna Baszler you could put in there. You still got Nia Jax, who's going to hurt everybody in the match, right? You have Charlotte Flair. You have to put Asuka in there, Alexa Bliss, right? And then you just throw some random ass woman in there from Raw. Rhea Ripley. Well, that's a pretty good chamber, right? Like, I don't want to see Nia Jax. Baszler has been booked, right? But, like, those 5 women besides Jax are pretty solid to be in that chamber, right? And could all be, said to be the champion. The one thing about Charlotte and Asuka, though, is Charlotte and Asuka are tag team partners, right? I guess the same thing goes with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. But
they lost the championship, though. They did lose the championship. So
They did. I don't even know how they became champions. I don't know if they were friends or whatever. I don't know how that worked. I remember John Cena and Shawn Michaels back in the day winning the tag team titles, and then obviously fighting each other at WrestleMania. So it could happen. But, you know, it's just, I agree with you. There is enough women to do it on Raw. And I think if SmackDown, you know, you could do it for SmackDown. Here's the thing too, RKJ, I want to ask you this. You know, we were talking about this before the podcast. You have the Elimination Chamber on February 21st, and then you have Fastlane on March 21st. What does Sasha and Bianca Belair do before WrestleMania? Like,
okay.
That's the thing is, maybe you do have the Elimination Chamber for SmackDown, because the women on the SmackDown show, technically you could say, are kind of better, and you could have a great match and just not involve Bianca Belair. Mm-hmm. Right. So what do you think? Like, what's the women's division doing on SmackDown if they're not in the Elimination Chamber for the next 2 pay-per-views?
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no clue, because the Royal Rumble always leaves a big hole to fill in the next couple of months. It's hard to be a Royal Rumble winner, because it's like, okay, we got 2 months left to fill you out until WrestleMania. What are we gonna do? I mean, we all know that thing is for Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. Personally, what I would like to see is Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks kind of be a tag team for a little bit. I'd like to see them win the women's tag team championships. However, I need to see a heel turn from Sasha Banks. I need to see a little bit more aggression. It can't just be buddy, friend going into WrestleMania. This is one of the top matches in WrestleMania. So you have to have some aggression. You have to have some heat here. I like heat in my feuds. I don't like it when people are going into it as best friends. So yeah, let's copy the Shawn Michaels, John Cena playbook from that WrestleMania. Let's have that happen. And then eventually Sasha Banks is going to turn on Bianca Belair, and Bianca Belair makes her official decision to face Sasha Banks at WrestleMania. So, and then it's going to get physical. So I think that makes sense. In the meantime, it looks like Bianca Belair is going to be feuding with Carmella possibly. I mean, I guess she's going to be feuding with Carmella, and Carmella's going to try to sneak her way into WrestleMania, possibly take Bianca Belair's WrestleMania spot away, try to put that on the line. We see that a lot happen before WrestleMania. I mean, you could do that, but nobody's going to really care about that. You know what I'm saying? So, me personally, all roads lead to Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. It's just how do we get there and trying to figure out what we can do to add some heat to this feud.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would see it more as potentially Bayley getting involved in the SmackDown feud. Carmella, I mean, she lost clean to Sasha at the Royal Rumble. I don't think she really has any realistic stake at being in WrestleMania, in 2 months, right? Like there's no way that continues. I do think, though, you could have Bayley, who's not doing much right now, after losing the Royal Rumble, getting eliminated by Bianca Belair. Maybe you have Bayley insert herself. You have this awesome triple threat match between Bayley, Bianca Belair, and Sasha Banks. I mean, if there's anything better than Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks, it's Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks versus Bayley, right? All three in a triple threat match, right? Like and all women being as legitimate as possible. And then you could also have Bianca Belair pin Bayley, and you save Sasha, or you have Sasha pin, Bayley. But I think Bianca Belair needs to win. But so there is that way of doing it too, that you keep both women solid, and having a triple threat opponent could be better in the long run for the two women too.
I personally think Bayley needs to stay away from Sasha. Honestly, I'm like, as great as that feud was at later part of last year and how great it was, I would like for them to be separate, because it's gonna get stale. We can always revisit it later on. But I think it's a situation where we need fresh opponents for Sasha Banks, somebody's different, a new face. We need new challenges for her to overcome. We need new facets of the character that she can bring, the boss character. And I think Bayley's just going to be the same thing. Now, am I okay with Bianca Belair and Bayley feuding for the next couple of months? Sure. If Bianca or Bayley wants to say, hey, I was the rightful winner of the Royal Rumble, I have an idea, as a matter of fact. If you look really closely at that Royal Rumble, when they did that spot hanging off the ropes, her and Rhea Ripley, it looks really close, like Bianca Belair's both of her feet hit the floor. Like,
that's a very good point.
I'm looking at it, and I commented on somebody's YouTube channel. She said no, but somebody else on Instagram pointed it out. Like, both of her feet looks like it hits the floor. We could do a recap of Big Show and The Rock in 2000, where Big Show came out and said, hey, you lost the Royal Rumble. Your feet touched the floor first before mine's. And Triple H made him prove it, and ultimately they had to have a match. And we know how that WrestleMania went. Well, let's do this again with Bayley and Bianca Belair. Now, the only issue is Bayley got eliminated early in the match, but she can say, hey, you're not the rightful winner of the Royal Rumble. Put it on the line against me in a match. Let's say at Fastlane, and let's see who's the rightful winner. That could be something that happens. But ultimately, I want Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. I don't think Bayley being involved is going to help that match even further, unless you're concerned from a technical standpoint. And I don't see any technical concerns with Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks on the wrestling side. I think the triple threat needs to be reserved for the women's one on Raw.
Yeah, I'll say this, RKJ. I want Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. I come out here kind of playing devil's advocate, throwing out some things, but I absolutely want to see Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. I would not mind if that main event in night one. So I'm throwing it out there. That's the best women's wrestling match I can think of right now.
Oh,
honestly.
Really quickly, you mentioned Shayna Baszler in the Elimination Chamber. Okay, I was talking to Jesse the other day, and I was telling Jesse, I was like, look, man, let me be honest with you. Shayna Baszler is probably never going to get near that Raw Women's Championship again. Like, all those reports that came out last year about Vince McMahon not liking Shayna Baszler, I believe they're absolutely positively spot on. Becky Lynch was pregnant, and she still did not give the championship to Shayna Baszler. They still did not give it. They gave it to Asuka. So Shayna Baszler, for people who are like, well, what about Shayna Baszler? Why Shayna Baszler? Is she getting built? No, she's not going to sniff that Raw Women's Championship ever.
Well, they're not booking her like it either, so it makes sense. You never know about Vince, right? And you also don't know, we can say it every single week. Remember, guys, we're talking probably as much as the writers are talking about this because we don't even think the writers know what's happening at WrestleMania either. So you're listening to us. We know just as much as the WWE writers know right now. So, we'll see what ends up happening, but I think there could be some good stuff. A couple names on Raw, I'll just throw out too. They have been booking Lana for potentially a kind of a comeback against Nia Jax. Maybe you have Lana get her first women's championship with Raw at WrestleMania. Maybe you have Naomi, who just returned, looked great in the Royal Rumble. You have her go after Raw. So there are a couple superstars that I could like, and those are two others that you add to that Raw Elimination Chamber as well that could make it a pretty good women's Elimination Chamber, make it as legitimate as possible. I just personally maybe want to see, Asuka just doesn't do it for me right now. She's not the same as her NXT character. And, I just want to see something new. I'm kind of tired of the Asuka act unless she's, I want Asuka to be a heel, realistically. I think Asuka's next thing is she needs to be a heel.
Well, she was a heel last year with Kairi Sane, and then she turned back face real quickly.
It's stupid, though. Asuka should not be a face. Like, when she's a face, she's corny. It's stupid stuff. It's like, even like she's like scared of Alexa Bliss. Like, if you're a badass, why are you scared of Alexa Bliss? Like, I get why you should be. Technically, if someone's changing their clothes in a second, I'd be scared too. But like, come on. You think Becky Lynch is scared of Alexa Bliss? She comes back? No. Right? So
Ripley wasn't scared of Alexa Bliss in the Royal Rumble. She kicked her ass right out.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting.
Like, you ain't turned into the devil right now. You can do that devil shit outside there, but you're not winning this Royal Rumble. You're not doing this inside this Royal Rumble. So, yeah. I think it's bad booking, and I think, honestly, as bad as this is going to sound, and I'm going to probably get heat for this, but it's the curse of Charlotte Flair. Once you go into that vortex, you never come out the same.
Who are you speaking on? Asuka?
I'm speaking on Asuka. That loss at WrestleMania 34 was when I saw it, I remember us all being on the phone, I said, Asuka's probably never going to be the same again.
Hey, and here's the thing. But she's the queen. She's going to break her dad's thing.
And nobody will care.
Yep.
Not a single soul will care about it. And I'm going to be honest with you. She's kind of like John Cena around the mid-2000s.
She's worse than Cena.
When John Cena kind of ruled everything in WWE, and you kind of like, once you lost to him, you just went down the totem pole even further. Carlito had a few with him, and we didn't see Carlito after that for like 10 years. So we didn't see Carlito for like 10 years. It's like, where you at? He's like, I lost to Cena. There's nothing else for me to do. I'm going. Like, he was getting rated by Ric Flair and everything. You know what I'm saying? So.
No, it's, Charlotte Flair, at least with Cena, he's a nice guy. Charlotte, she's so unlikable on TV, too. It's just hard to root for.
Like, they're trying to make Lacey Evans and Ric Flair the heels, but honestly, they're coming off as the faces because it's a situation where it's like, you're treating your father so bad.
Hey, you took Charlotte out of the title picture? Let's go.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what we do it. Can we talk about John Cena real quick?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So John Cena, there was, he made a comment about the fact that he is filming in Canada and that he is unable to likely come to WrestleMania before WrestleMania starts because the way the Canadian government works right now, it's very hard to get back in the country from the United States. So the rumor is, unless John Cena is lying about this, he's not going to be at WrestleMania until June or July. So RKJ Man, what are your thoughts on John Cena possibly not being involved in WrestleMania? We'd heard the rumors before this that he absolutely was a part of it. Now he comes out and says personally that he's not going to be there. What's going on? What do you believe?
I think he's telling the truth. This is a big time production for HBO Max. We all know that they're trying to get their streaming service up and running, and they're trying to get as much content as possible. So, if I was a producer and I was HBO, I wouldn't be okay with John Cena leaving quarantine to go do wrestling. It's like, well, I thought you were fully committed to this. Why are you going down there just because, a 71-year-old man who can't create his own stars is calling you? You know what I'm saying? That's not our problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've heard stories about The Rock being unable to wrestle because studios were hesitant after he got injured in 2013 in that WrestleMania match against John Cena. They were like, we really don't want you to wrestle because we have to have insurance and we have to have stuff like this. So, The Rock can't do it unless he's not filming a certain movie. So I personally understand where John Cena is coming from. And once again, this is why I said in September, Vince, what are your options? What is your plan for Roman Reigns? Because now that Edge can't face Drew McIntyre, he's facing Roman Reigns, at least a domino effect for Drew McIntyre leaves this big hole and everything kind of gets messed up because of it. I guess it was supposed to be John Cena, but John Cena's not going to do it. And my issue is WWE over the past few years have not been able to create new stars. So now you're in a situation where WrestleMania is like, okay, we need a star. You don't have it. So, I mean, this is not John Cena's fault. This is something he can't control. And I don't think he's going to be at WrestleMania this year unless it's like via like Skype or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to see John Cena via Skype. That'd be stupid. Okay, I'm just going to throw that out there first. I'll say this. I know every wrestling fan has this on their mind. If you can't get Daniel Bryan, you can't get John Cena, you can't get Cesaro. There's always Goldberg for Roman Reigns. But okay, no, I'm just kidding. I think I would shoot myself in the head if that happened. So here's the thing. I believe John Cena too. I think that he, I understand it. Like you mentioned, you make a lot of good points. The Rock, does the same thing. The Rock, I think, is not wrestling this year because of just COVID and all that stuff. I don't blame him either. I wouldn't want to, with 20,000 people in the stands in a stadium that's too big for 20,000 people, or, what I'm saying? I wouldn't want to be there too. Wait till you get a full crowd next year in April, right? But, John Cena, probably a little bit of him thinks the same thing, right? It's like, is this worth it this year's WrestleMania? Like, might as well let the guys do it down there that have been dealing with the Thunderdome, that have been dealing with the COVID protocols. I'm going to film my movie, and I'll come back when people care more, right? And so I don't blame John Cena. Could this be him kayfabing us? Maybe. Maybe he's just been in the United States the whole time and is not even filming a show. I don't know. I don't follow John Cena's career that much. I don't really. All I hear is him do commercials on my NFL, games. I hear him doing commercials and stuff like that. But besides that, I don't really know what John Cena's been doing. So if he says he's not going to be, at WrestleMania, that's fine. He did say he's going to return to WWE though. So he's not going to go away forever and all that stuff. So does that mean SummerSlam? Does that mean whatever? Probably, right? But I personally don't think he's showing up at WrestleMania either. All right, let's move to every other promotion in professional wrestling because they're all getting together and doing stuff now, apparently. Let's talk about AEW Beach Break. We also have news on New Japan Pro Wrestling. They have a deal in the United States on Roku TV for Thursday, so we're going to start getting New Japan Pro Wrestling here in the United States, at least if you have the Roku TV channel. I don't think I do because I have YouTube TV, and I got like 60 channels. So I don't think I have it. But, that's where the old streaming service comes in, and the old Reddit streams comes in.
I'm one of 10 people in the country who have Roku.
Wow.
So
well, when COVID's over, I'm coming over to your house on Thursday.
Yeah, you can come over to my house on Thursdays. I'll temperature check you.
Yeah, maybe we'll Skype it. I'll have you face the screen for me so I can watch it. We'll record it. We'll record it so I can tape it too. We'll do it like we're doing right now.
Yeah, pretty much because I we'll talk about it, but I think that deal with Roku could have been a lot better. I mean, you were talking with ESPN and CBS Sports, and you got Roku.
Yeah, no, but so we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about AEW Beach Break. Sort of it's a TV pay-per-view. It's one of these things they've been doing lately. And you have all these storylines intermingling. You have Moxley's technically still going after Kenny Omega's title. Kenny Omega is fully entranced with Don Callis and the Good Brothers from Impact Wrestling. They've teased a Bullet Club reunion. They've even pissed off current Bullet Club members. and we also have Pac involved. You have Ray Phoenix, who I think is one of the most entertaining wrestlers in the world right now. Put that guy in every single main event possible. I am down. And Pac's just as good as well. And you have this match, and you have this Beach Break pay-per-view, right? You have Moxley finally getting back in the ring with Omega, all this stuff. And what happens at the end? Kenta from New Japan Pro Wrestling shows up at the end, takes out Jon Moxley, and you look and you remember, oh yeah, that's right, Moxley has the United States the IGWP title from New Japan. This makes sense, but it's super weird to have a New Japan guy, especially with the pandemic and stuff, show up in Jacksonville, Florida. And now what we have seen is on this single Beach Break show, you saw AEW wrestlers, you saw Impact wrestlers, you saw an NWA wrestler, and you now saw a New Japan Pro Wrestling wrestler. So, RKJ Man, what the hell does this mean? And I'm sure you love it, right? That you never know who's going to show up on AEW now, right? It's craziness.
You also forgot about Shaq and Cody, which we
that's right. We got the NBA involved too. Well, yeah, we knew about Shaq and Kobe. They moved the match. God, and there's so much to talk about that because LeBron doesn't want to play in the All-Star game. They might have to cancel the All-Star game, so they'll have to move it back to Revolution. Let me just update people on that really quickly, okay? So I actually discussed this last week. I mentioned that AEW Revolution, which was the last pay-per-view last year before the pandemic with fans in it, AEW Revolution was originally set for, I believe, 3 weeks from now, in February. They moved it because there's a giant UFC card happening on that date. So they moved it to March 6th. There was something on March 6th, and then they moved it to March 7th. Then the NBA announced that they were having an All-Star game. Obviously, that's TNT always has the All-Star games. So that's going to happen on the Sunday. They didn't want to have to, go up against the NBA All-Star game because, the NBA All-Star game is popular and will generate some views. Also, you have Bleacher Report, TNT. They're going to cover the All-Star game. They're not going to cover AEW, right? And so there's a conflict. So what they had to do is, because Shaq will be doing Inside the NBA before and at halftime and after the NBA All-Star game, he can't be there for Sundays at Revolution. So they moved it to Wednesday, which would be a day before he normally does Inside the NBA. So that's why that happened. So yeah, we did have news from that. The match isn't changed, but the date is changed. And then it came out that LeBron and Kemba Walker and Kawhi Leonard don't even want to play in the All-Star game. And so it's a whole.
Walker shouldn't complain anyway. He's been injured so much. I'm surprised he's even being discussed to be in the All-Star game.
Kemba Walker has been playing like ass this year, and we're not going to get into an NBA topic, but Kemba Walker is a flop for whatever his contract is. Man, I put that guy in my fantasy lineups all the time, and he pisses me off every single game. Yesterday, 20 points. Come on.
Michael Jordan may have been right not giving him a max contract before he left the Hornets.
Hey, Gordon Hayward. Right?
Gordon
Hayward's balling out.
And I said, and I was like, I don't know about Gordon Hayward. He's balling out.
LaMelo Ball is balling out too, over 30 points last night.
Well, the Hornets before last night were 6 seed.
That's insane. That is absolutely insane. But let's get back to wrestling. So that Shaq match is moved, but yeah. So we have Inside the NBA, we have AEW, New Japan, Impact, NWA. RKJ, where does this go? How far do you think this continues? And where do you think they lead any of this stuff to? Do you think we have a giant New Japan AEW show? Do you think we have maybe an Ibushi or an Okada showing up on AEW? Do you think we maybe have the Bullet Club? How far do you think this goes? Or do you think it's just Kenta and Moxley?
I think this is leading to more because you saw in the women's eliminator tournament, you have a situation where there's women from Japan who are participating to fight Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's Championship. So I think it's going to lead to more. And honestly, I think we're going to get this matchup between AEW and New Japan, maybe Impact involved, at a Blood and Guts, We were supposed to get it last year. Obviously, the pandemic screwed everything up. I think later in the year when AEW can start touring again in limited capacity stadiums, I think we're going to finally get a blood and guts match. And I think this is just the setup and lead start of that feud. But I think it's great. I think it's great that everybody is working together, and we need it during a pandemic. And it's kind of funny because New Japan, when AEW first started, was hesitant on working with AEW. I guess they viewed them as competition, and we don't want to, fight you or face you or deal with you. And now they're working with them, and AEW has kind of been pawning it. And, I know Tony Khan has let Moxley and other people go over to AEW or go over to New Japan and do their thing over in New Japan. He's been very friendly. And I heard somewhere, I think it was from Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful, he had said that Tony Khan made a statement, well, one good favor deserves another. So I'm guessing he's starting to call back on those favors. So I think we're going to get some really good feuds, especially that Kenta Moxley thing. I think that could even be defended on AEW television. I think it's going to be great. My only concern, and I was talking to you about this before we went on air, is, well, where does that leave free agents? Because if we're all working together, and let's say, for instance, we have Joey Janela here, and we decide, you know what, we're not going to re-sign you. Well, Joey Janela, I mean, he could go over to New Japan or Impact Wrestling, but will he get a good amount of money? Will he get the more money or the same amount of money? Will he get less because we're all working together? I mean, that's my only concern. When you have competing promotions, you don't want people from your top promotion. You don't want your promotion losing superstars. But now that we're all working together and we're sharing people, it's kind of like a situation where it's like, okay, well, even if you're released, it's not even that big of a deal. I mean, we saw Taya Valkyrie get released. She's gone from Impact Wrestling, but they made a joke about it, saying she can go to Jacksonville or WWE. Obviously, she goes to WWE. That would be huge, and I honestly think that's where she's going. But if they go to Jacksonville, I mean, they could do something there, and they can have interactions there. So that's my only concern is this going to hurt the free agent pool in wrestling after, earlier this year and last year before the pandemic, we saw it kind of exploding because of all these new options.
Well, I'll say this. You make some good points there. And first of all, I think Taya Valkyrie should absolutely go to AEW because I think AEW needs as much help as it can get in the women's division. Like I'm saying, yeah, WWE's got Rhea Ripley, they got Bianca Belair, they got Sasha Banks, Bayley, Asuka. Like they got a lot of women they're way, Charlotte, of course, way better than every single AEW wrestler. No offense, but I'm just going to throw it out there. So, Taya Valkyrie, please come to Jacksonville or Miami, I guess, because they're moving Miami. But, what I see about this, too, is, I love it because I'm down for more matches that I haven't seen, right? Kenta and Moxley, we haven't seen because Kenta was in NXT. He was a cruiserweight, all that stuff. And Moxley was obviously with the Shield. He was doing his own thing. He was fighting Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Like it's, they haven't seen each other. And Moxley's had this rejuvenated, kind of personality. And Kenta, the same thing. It'd also be nice on a big time match to see the GTS used as well, since we lost that in 2013 with CM Punk leaving the business. But, what I see from this, I see at least the Impact and NWA stuff. I see that as temporary because I think that's the wrestling business helping itself, right? They see that, Impact has no fans, right? And Impact is struggling a bit, right? But on its own without fans. And so AEW goes, let's come up. We got fans. We got bigger TV. We got TNT. We'll get a couple of your guys on your show. We'll bring guys over to your show. We'll increase ratings, right? But come the summer, this is not going to be happening again. Right. Then you have NWA. NWA, essentially the only reason NWA is still afloat is because of AEW. You know what I'm saying? You have their women wrestling because there's been nowhere for NWA to wrestle early on in the pandemic and stuff like that. But with New Japan Pro Wrestling, this was a rumor the minute AEW became a thing. That they would, because of the connections with Kenny and the Young Bucks and Cody and Hangman Adam Page, that this is the connection that everyone was looking forward to. So do I think this is more of a long-term thing? Yeah. And I'll read a quote from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer. He said, this is about the New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW deal. It says, the deal is done and the two sides have a working relationship. That's New Japan and AEW. The pandemic sped it up. but it also holds it back at the same time. You know, the only way to get Moxley was to make a deal. When AEW first started, New Japan had no clue how successful they'd be. There are a lot of things about it. So, what you said, I think New Japan didn't trust AEW. They weren't willing to work with a company that might not even work out, right? AEW has shown that they are a force in the wrestling business. They've been able to get over 1 million views, 1 million viewers on AEW shows. They're consistently in the high hundreds of thousands and 700, 800, 900,000 every single week. They beat NXT every single week. And New Japan, right, they were forced to go away for a little bit as well, whereas AEW continued on during the pandemic. And they could use some help getting back to their normalcy as well, although they have been, they just do a show with 25,000 people at it. So they're a little bit normal in the U.S., I'd say. So I do think this is more long-term. Do I think we're going to get the big guys in? Probably not. We're probably not getting a Tanahashi or an Okada or an Ibushi in there. But will we get, some crossover here and there? I do think so. And I think that's good for the wrestling business. With WWE monopolizing everything lately, when I say lately, I mean the last 20 years, it's good that you don't know who's going to show up on AEW TV. And we've seen this countless times now with Miro showing up, with obviously Moxley showing up at Double or Nothing 2 years ago. Jericho signed with the company, all that stuff. And then now you have a guy like Kenta show up, Good Brothers, all that. It's good stuff. And I'm excited to see what it is. And I'm excited to see the future. What do you think about New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW's agree? Like, do you think this is something? Do you agree with me that maybe AEW, NWA is more, or excuse me, Impact and NWA is more temporary and New Japan's more long term, or do you see it a different way?
I actually see it a different way, just because of the United States and our restrictions and what's going on with the vaccine and how our COVID cases are still up there, the most in the world. I just see it's going to be very difficult to get people over here from Japan. You know what I'm saying? They're going to have to quarantine. You're going to have to buy them accommodations and stuff like that. That could be in itself a huge financial hurdle for Tony Khan. That could be very expensive. I mean, is it worth it? Yeah, sure. But financially, that could be very difficult to do. And we don't even know if that could happen because of all the restrictions. Now, granted, AEW is in one of the most lenient states in the country right now in Florida. So Florida is probably going to help them get anything done. But, I mean, it's a situation where I have, right down the street, Tennessee, I have freaking Impact Wrestling I can work with. Or I can work with NWA. Hell, if they want to, they can even extend their olive branch to Ring of Honor if they wanted to. These are all United States promotions that you can do business with, and it's easier to do that. Guys and gals are here in the United States. You don't have to worry about all that. I think New Japan's going to be a little more difficult, but you can do it. And also, I have another issue, okay? Not that many people still in the United States are watching New Japan Pro Wrestling compared to AEW and WWE.
Yeah.
Tony Khan and them are going to have to get them over. I knew who Kenta was because of his time as Hideo Itami in the WWE, and that was a failed run in 205 Live. So I know him because of that, and because I've seen some matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling. But the average wrestling fan may not know that. They might not know who Tanahashi is. They might not know who Ibushi is. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to be quite frank with you. I don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I haven't seen a lot of those great matches that everybody like you and Sidney G are going crazy over. So they're going to have to, if they are committed to this New Japan Pro Wrestling thing, they're going to have to really invest us into these characters, and we're going to have to really really have to get to know these people and say, okay, well, I can emotionally invest in this character facing, or Tanahashi facing Cody Rhodes, because I know about the story of Tanahashi. Right now, we don't know that much about them. So it's kind of like, if we see them, it's like, oh, it's a big deal, but who are they? Like, there needs to be a correlation. And I hopefully Tony Khan learns from the mistakes he made in the women's division, in my opinion, and bringing those Josie women wrestlers down and not really building anything from them. Hopefully he learns from that. And now that he has New Japan kind of like together in a relationship and an agreement, he can do something with that.
Very good point. Very good point. You're right. Japan's a lot more difficult to work with. I don't personally know the travel restrictions on Japan. I know that our president here was going to potentially put more restrictions on people coming into the country and out of the country just to help the COVID situation. So again, everything's kind of fluid right? But yeah, it should be interesting. And like you said, you know, well, actually, not like you said, but like Dave Meltzer said, New Japan Pro Wrestling kind of big leagued the AEW and said, you guys are the minor leagues, all this stuff, kind of like WWE has, and they were wrong. And now that there's a working relationship, so they'll make it work. And that's starting already with AEW Dynamite this week having a tag team match of Kenta and Kenny Omega versus Moxley and Lance Archer. Like, all guys that have wrestled in New Japan within the last 2 years. So pretty crazy.
It's gonna be fantastic. Like that's great. But are we gonna get a video package explaining who Kenta is? Like
they should. Yeah, they should.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I know who Kenta is. I know him from Hideo Itami, and I know a lot of people in the wrestling industry be like, RKJ Man, how do you not know who Kenta is? Or how do you not know who Tanahashi or Bishi? Well, guess what? I don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling like that. It's a foreign product, and I don't speak Japanese. I'm going to be honest with you. So, it's like, and I remember a few years ago, before AEW was even created, I was watching a New Japan Pro Wrestling show in San Francisco, and I was able to watch it. Me and my mom sit down. You know that she's a big wrestling fan, Nick. And my mom looked at it, and she said, I don't like this product. So they've got a long way to go in the United States to get people invested, and now they're coming on AEW television. You better find a way to make it work. Just because you're partnering together and agreement's been made doesn't mean it's going to be a great thing for the viewers. At the end of the day, it's about us, the consumer, and whether we like it or not. If we don't like it, we'll just go to NXT or WWE. We have plenty of other options out there now.
Yeah, no, true. Very good point. They do have to build those guys up because, again, like, my girlfriend that doesn't watch really any wrestling, she did watch the the New Japan. I get mixed up with the IGWP and all, like, it's super confusing. So excuse me if I say the wrong thing. You know what I'm talking about. But we watched New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom, and she liked the colorfulness, and it was clear as obviously the bad guys are kind of black and white sorta, and a little more less color. Japan has its own style and all that stuff, but yeah, I mean, she had no idea who any of the guys are, right? Like, if she turned on Raw for a second, and she's like, okay, I know that Randy Orton guy, like, I know him, and that Roman guy looks, he looks big, right, and Edge and all that stuff. And she's actually, we turned on, Carlito was on the TV for a second, and I'm like, this guy hasn't been around for 11 years. You wouldn't understand, but so there's some building. There's some building that has to be done, and some of that will help with the U.S. now on Thursdays getting this Roku TV deal. Obviously, some of us don't have Roku TV, like I was mentioning. I don't, but I have the ability to go on illegal streams and watch New Japan. I watched Bare Knuckle Fighting with Paige Van Zandt last night on an illegal stream, and I also watched Jose Canseco screw Barstool Sports out of $50,000. Just to give you a little recap of what I watched last night. But this will help. This type of deal will help, and New Japan expanding in the U.S. as much as they don't want to do it, they need to, because the wrestling business is primarily in the United States, right? The big time matches are in the United States. Yes, there's Wrestle Kingdom, but like you're mentioning, RKJ, you're the biggest wrestling fan I know, and you don't watch New Japan. Because it's hard to understand what's going on, right? There's a lot of Japanese being spoken. There's a lot of guys that have never been in any other promotions besides New Japan, so it's difficult. At least when you watch a AAA show, you have a lot of guys right? And from Mexico and stuff like that. What were you gonna say?
I'll give you a great example from WWE. Asuka. Why do you think she's not getting pushed as much? You made this statement on our
language barrier
when we're doing our audio podcast. Vince McMahon is concerned about the language barrier, and he's concerned about her being marketable in the United States. Why do you think Asuka got beat at WrestleMania 34? Because he knew that he had Ronda Rousey on tap for the next year's WrestleMania, and he wanted Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey, and then obviously it changed. So you've got a long way to go in the United States to make it relevant, and that's the reason why Vince has never seen a reason to push people from Japan as high as he has, because it's a situation where it's like, are my American clientele, are they going to be invested in this person?
Yeah, and, hardcore wrestling fans like us can get invested to a guy like Shinsuke Nakamura if they're booked right, or Asuka if they're booked right, like they were at NXT. But, some people, if they can't speak English, don't need to be on the mic. It's okay. We understand you're from a different country. We're not telling you can't, but even the MLB, for example, didn't market Ichiro like they did Alex Rodriguez or Derek Jeter, right? It's just a way. Ichiro had trouble learning the English language. He had, over 3,000 hits, but he's not regarded as one of the best players ever, probably because he's Japanese and doesn't speak English and wasn't able to do interviews and stuff like that. So, it hurts. The same thing happens in MMA, in boxing. You have a guy that can't speak English, it's a little tougher to get around them, right, in the United States because we speak, English here. So it's nothing wrong with them, but the wrestling promotion needs to help them out as well.
And really quickly, this isn't a racist thing. This is just business.
Yeah.
This is not a racist thing. I know people are like, oh, you're being racist. No, you jackasses. We're not being racist here, okay? We're just speaking business, and business says you have to have American clientele for Americans. It's just like if we were to go into Japan, guess what? Some of the WWE superstars will be big over there, but mostly the Japan superstars will be huge over there. Same thing in Mexico.
Yeah, and if I go to Japan, I'm not going to be asking for everything in English. I'm going to learn a little bit of Japanese, right, to be able just to go to a restaurant or stay at a hotel or talk to the hotel clerk. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the way it is, right? But we got to talk about this stuff because this is the truth. This is the truth of why these people don't get over, because wrestling promotions, I'll put the blame on them, put them in difficult situations of having to learn English on the fly in front of 20,000 people. That's not cool, right? Give them the mouthpiece, give them the Paul Heyman, give them to somebody else, help them out, and then when they actually know how to speak the language and can properly do a promo that makes sense, then we're good. And what they've done with Asuka is, the exact opposite of that. They forced her to talk, same with Shinsuke, and they didn't get over on the WWE product, NXT. They didn't say shit, and they just kicked ass, and everyone respected them. So, yeah. Big stuff happening in the wrestling business. RKJ, I'll tell you this, I can see us almost doing this every single week. We can get here on the wrestling news and just figure out a way to get on here and just talk wrestling because it's WrestleMania season, right? And it seems like AEW is doing a good job of competing a little bit. They're like, we're going to put on 2 pay-per-views. We're going to put on Beach Break Revolution. Blood and Guts was set for, I believe, April of last year as well. So that should be coming up soon. And then, of course, Double or Nothing in May. So, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but always good to talk wrestling with you, brother. And I'll let you take it away to end this podcast.
And real quickly, like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, raise a glass in the sky and salute the ring generals.